All right, let's dive into some seriously creepy babysitter stories.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got this text. It's full of real-life babysitting experiences that'll make you think twice about taking that late-night gig.
For
I
sure.
mean, we always think of babysitting as a pretty standard,
Yeah.
even boring job, you know?
Yeah.
But these stories, they take a dark turn,
Yeah.
really exploring the psychology of fear and resilience.
Yeah. What I find so fascinating about these stories is that they tap into like our primal fears,
Right.
the vulnerability we feel when we're responsible for someone else's safety.
Especially when you're in a situation where you feel powerless.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack the first story.
Okay.
The basement intruder.
Ooh, that sounds creepy already.
It starts with a classic setup. Teenage babysitter, 5 kids, sleepover, a basement.
Okay.
Sounds pretty typical, right?
Yeah, it's that normalcy that makes it so scary.
Yeah.
Like you're lulled into this false sense of security.
Exactly.
And then bam, something unexpected happens.
Exactly. So imagine this. You're the 16-year-old babysitter. You're downstairs playing video games with the kids.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, you hear footsteps coming from upstairs.
Oh, no.
And not just light footsteps either. These are heavy and deliberate.
That's so scary.
Oh, no.
And what about the basement door?
Oh, yeah. The basement door was unlocked, which adds, like, another layer of unease.
Right. It's like someone has already breached the safety of the house.
It's like that heart-stopping moment in a horror movie when you realize the killer is already inside.
I bet.
She immediately senses something is wrong, and she herds the children to the safest place she can think of, the workout room.
Smart.
She starts barricading the door with whatever she can find, trying to buy them some time.
It's interesting how, even in a moment of panic, she takes charge.
Right.
It shows our innate drive to protect not just ourselves, but those we're responsible for.
And then the intruder starts trying to force his way in.
Oh, God.
The rattling doorknob, the sounds of struggle.
Ugh, I can't even imagine.
The kids are huddled together, just terrified.
This situation is so psychologically intense. It's like a classic siege.
Right.
You're trapped, and you have the responsibility of protecting these kids.
And you have no idea who this intruder is or what they want.
Exactly.
The story doesn't tell us how long they were trapped in that room, but I bet it felt like an eternity.
Oh, I'm sure.
But eventually the footsteps retreat and the intruder flees.
Thank goodness.
The house is ransacked, but thankfully the children are physically unharmed.
So much relief.
But, you know, the story ends with the house being ransacked.
Right.
And that's the real takeaway here, the lingering emotional toll this whole experience takes on the babysitter.
Experiences like this can really mess with your sense of security.
It makes you think about the unseen scars, you know,
Well,
the emotional and psychological after effects that can stay with someone long after the physical danger is gone.
for sure.
Okay, so the next story we're going to talk about is called Midnight Knock.
Whew. Just the title is giving me chills.
This time, we're in a blizzard-stricken town with a young babysitter and a little boy named Matthew.
Okay.
And the contrast between that quiet, isolating snowstorm
Right.
and the sudden, violent intrusion, that's what gets me.
Yeah, it reinforces that idea that danger can erupt anywhere, at any time.
It shatters any illusion of safety you might have.
Totally.
So the story starts with this loud knock at the door at midnight.
At midnight.
Yeah, who knocks at midnight during a blizzard?
Right. That's so creepy.
And then it quickly escalates, pounding, angry shouts, and then breaking glass from another room.
oh my God.
Talk about a sudden shift from peaceful to terrifying.
Right. You have no time to think. You just have to react.
And the babysitter, she's thinking fast. She grabs the child and finds the nearest hiding place.
Good for her.
They hide in Matthew's toy closet.
Oh, poor Matt.
Imagine the terror of being trapped in a confined space like that, listening to these intruders ransack the house,
So scared.
just waiting for them to find you.
I hate that.
Thankfully, the police arrive and the intruders scatter, and everyone is apprehended.
What a relief.
But even though they're safe, the story highlights the lasting impact of that night.
I bet.
The babysitter continues to have nightmares even after the physical threat is gone.
That just shows you how trauma can linger.
Okay, so the third story we're going to talk about is The Stalker in the Woods.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that.
This one really taps into our fear of the unknown, that feeling of being watched.
Yeah, I hate that feeling.
This story is about another young babysitter and an 8-year-old boy named Mike.
Okay.
They live in this house that's near a dense forest, and they decide to take the family dog for a walk.
Okay, seems pretty harmless.
Right, just a walk in the woods.
Yeah.
So they're walking along, and suddenly the dog freezes.
Uh-oh.
Ears perked, barking uncontrollably.
Yikes.
And that's when the babysitter sees him.
Sees who?
A man standing behind a tree, just watching them.
That's terrifying.
The dog knew something was up before she did,
Animals are so good at sensing danger.
It's like they're trying to warn us. So she calls out to the man, but he just turns and disappears into the woods.
Are creepy.
But it gets even creepier later that night.
Oh, no.
They're inside playing video games, and she hears a noise outside.
Okay.
And the dog goes crazy, barking at the door.
Not again.
She grabs the dad's hunting rifle and checks the windows.
What does she see?
The man.
Oh, my God.
He's standing outside, staring at her.
That's my worst nightmare.
It's like something out of a horror movie.
I know. It's that feeling of being watched, of being targeted.
She ends up raising the rifle, and that scares him off, at least for the moment.
I'm glad she did something.
But here's the unsettling part.
What?
A week later, she gets a call from the parents, and they tell her that he's been spotted again,
You're kidding.
lurking near their property.
So it wasn't just a one-time thing?
Nope, it was a pattern of behavior, deliberate harassment.
That's so disturbing.
It's chilling to think about what might have happened if she had been babysitting again that night.
I know.
What's fascinating is that all three of these stories share a common thread.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
The real horror isn't just the physical danger.
Right.
It's the psychological impact it leaves on the babysitters.
It's the trauma.
They each experience this lingering trauma, this sense of unease that can last for years.
It's like they're forced to confront their own vulnerability.
Yeah, and the fragility of safety and security.
And the heavy responsibility of caring for others in the face of danger.
It's a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really makes you think about the long-term effects these situations can have, even if no one was physically hurt.
It's like it gets under your skin,
Exactly. And it plays on that universal fear, the
Yeah.
fear of the unknown.
Right, like even as adults,
Mm-hmm.
we still get scared of the dark sometimes.
Yeah.
That fear of what might be hiding.
It's primal.
Totally.
And it's interesting how these stories use such familiar settings, right?
Like homes and basements.
Even a snowy night.
Yeah, which makes it even more unsettling.
Totally, because it's like, if it can happen there,
Right.
it could happen anywhere.
It really shatters that feeling of security.
Yeah, that sense of being in control.
And I think that's what makes these stories so relatable.
I agree.
We've all felt that moment when something just feels off.
Uh-huh. And that's usually when your fight or flight response kicks in.
Yeah.
Like these babysitters, they have to make split-second decisions.
With barely any information to go on.
Exactly. It's incredible how they handle the pressure.
And they're not just thinking about their own safety either.
Right. They're responsible for those kids.
That adds a whole other level of complexity to the situation.
It makes you wonder how these experiences will affect them later in life.
Right. Like, will they be more cautious?
Yeah. Or maybe they'll develop some anxiety.
Possibly.
It's interesting how trauma can manifest in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And there's no right or wrong way to cope with it.
That's important to remember.
So thinking about these stories, what can we learn from them?
That's a good question.
Like, what insights can we apply to our own lives?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is trusting your gut feeling.
Yeah, like, if something feels off,
Don't ignore it.
if you feel uneasy,
Trust your instincts.
be proactive.
Exactly.
Like, having a plan for emergencies can make a huge difference.
Oh, for sure. Like knowing your escape routes.
Yeah.
Or having a list of emergency numbers.
Or even taking a self-defense class.
That's a good one.
It's not just about the physical stuff, though. It's
Yeah.
about being mentally prepared, too.
Rebuilding resilience.
And finding healthy ways to cope with stress.
Yeah, and practicing mindfulness.
Absolutely. It's all about recognizing that
Yeah.
we can't control everything that happens.
But we can control how we react. And honestly, these stories are inspiring in a way.
Yeah.
They show how strong the human spirit can be.
It's amazing how people can find strength even in the scariest situations.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we all have that potential.
So as we keep going with these babysitter nightmares,
Okay.
let's keep those insights in mind.
Yeah.
They're good reminders that even in ordinary jobs,
Like babysitting.
there can be these moments of incredible courage.
That's true.
And those moments can ripple outwards.
Hmm.
They can inspire others to be brave too.
And they remind us that we're all connected.
Yeah, like we all experience these things.
Absolutely.
All right,
Yeah.
so ready to move on.
Let's wrap things up and talk about the bigger picture.
Yeah, like what do these stories tell us about ourselves?
And about the kids who go through these things too.
It's kind of wild to think about how these stories affect the kids too.
No, absolutely. It's not just about the babysitter. you know?
Right.
It's about the kids who are there who witness this stuff.
They see all of it.
It can really shape how they see the world, like their whole understanding of safety and trust.
Especially at such a young age.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, how do these kids even process it all?
Yeah. Do they end up being more scared of everything?
Maybe. It's definitely possible.
Or could they actually become more resilient because of it?
Yeah, seeing someone protect them so bravely,
Like their babysitter.
it could teach them a powerful lesson about courage.
That's true. It's like they're learning by example.
Exactly. Even in the toughest situations, we can find a way to be strong.
Not just for ourselves, but for others too.
That's the amazing part. Like, these babysitters are facing their own fears.
But they're also protecting these kids.
And maybe, without even realizing it, they're inspiring them.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
It really shows how adversity can make us grow.
So much to think about with these stories.
Oh, yeah.
As we wrap up this deep dive into babysitter nightmares, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest thing is that we all have incredible strength inside us.
Like those babysitters.
They show us that even when we're scared, we can still protect ourselves and others.
Yeah, and sometimes the scariest situations bring out the best in us.
It's about owning our vulnerability, but also being prepared.
And trusting that inner voice.
That gut feeling that tells you something's wrong.
These stories really are a testament to the human spirit.
The ability to survive and even thrive in the face of danger.
Well, I know I'm feeling pretty inspired right now.
Me too.
It's a good reminder that even in the darkest moments, there's always a glimmer of hope.
And the possibility for some serious bravery.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into babysitter nightmares. It's been a wild ride.
It was my pleasure.
To everyone listening,
Yeah.
stay safe out there.
And never forget how strong you are.